The stars had always been quiet for the Vethkai. In 10,000 years, no species had ever posed a real threat to their dominion. They moved through the galaxy like gods, taking what they wanted, destroying what they did not need. 47 species had fallen before them. Some had begged for mercy, others had tried to fight. All had failed. Admiral Tethvos stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Silence. His gray skin reflected the soft blue light of the holographic displays around him. His 4 eyes watched the small blue planet growing larger in the viewing screen. Earth, the natives called it. A simple name for a simple world. Status report, he said. His voice was cold and flat. He had done this many times before. The planet has approximately 8 billion life forms, his tactical officer replied. They call themselves humans. Technology level is primitive. Chemical propulsion rockets. Basic nuclear weapons. They fight among themselves constantly. Tethvos made a sound that might have been a laugh. Another young species too busy killing each other to look at the sky. How long did we observe them? 3 standard months. Admiral. More than enough. Prepare the cleansing bombardment. The Vethkai did not send warnings. They did not negotiate. They did not explain. In their view, lesser species did not deserve conversation. You did not talk to insects before stepping on them. The extermination fleet consisted of 23 warships. It was more than enough for a primitive world. The ships moved into position around Earth like wolves circling a wounded animal. On Earth below, it was an ordinary Tuesday. People went to work, children went to school, lovers held hands in parks. Scientists looked at the stars through telescopes, dreaming of the day humanity would join the galactic community. They had no idea what was coming. At exactly 3:47 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, the Vethkai fleet launched 12 antimatter warheads. The weapons fell through Earth's atmosphere like shooting stars. Some people even stopped to look up at the beautiful lights in the sky. Then the lights hit the ground. Moscow vanished in a flash of white fire. The ancient city, with all its history and millions of people, was gone in less than a second. Beijing followed moments later, then New York, Sao Paulo, Tokyo, London, Delhi, 12 cities in total, 12 pillars of fire reaching toward the sky. 2 billion people died in 17 minutes. Admiral Tethvos watched the destruction with satisfaction. The planet's surface was covered in clouds of smoke and ash. Fires burned across entire continents. The electromagnetic pulse from the blasts had destroyed most of the planet's communication systems. Excellent, he said. Begin deploying the harvester drones. We will collect the useful metals and move on. His officers began the standard procedures. They had done this 47 times before. The pattern was always the same. The initial bombardment would kill most of the population. The survivors would be too shocked and scattered to resist. The harvester drones would collect valuable resources while the remaining natives died slowly from radiation and starvation. Simple, clean, efficient. But something strange was happening on the planet below. Admiral, the tactical officer said, his voice uncertain. We are detecting unusual activity on the surface. Explain. The surviving broadcast stations are powering up. All of them. They appear to be transmitting something toward our fleet. Tethvos tilted his head. This was new. Usually the survivors were too busy dying to do anything organized. What are they transmitting? The officer touched his console, and the bridge filled with sound. It was laughter, not the laughter of joy or happiness. This was something darker. It was the laughter of someone who had lost everything and no longer cared about their own survival. It was the laughter of someone who had decided that if they were going to die, they would not die quietly. The laughter went on for nearly a minute. Then it stopped, and a human voice spoke. The ship's translation system converted the words into Vethkai language. You have our attention. Tethvos felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. A tiny flicker of unease. Ignore it, he said. Continue with the harvest. But the transmissions did not stop. More voices joined, thousands of them, millions. Survivors from every corner of the wounded planet were speaking, and they were all saying the same thing. We are still here. We are still standing. And we remember what you did. The harvester drones descended toward Earth's surface. The first wave contained 200 automated machines, each one designed to strip resources from a dead world. They were not weapons. They did not need to be. Their targets were supposed to be corpses. The first drone exploded 40 kilometers above the surface. Tethvos stood up from his command chair. What happened? Unknown projectile, Admiral. It came from the surface, moving at extreme velocity. That is impossible. We destroyed their military capabilities. Another drone exploded, then another, then 10 more at once. The tactical officer's hands moved frantically across his console. Admiral, we are detecting weapons fire from multiple locations. The mountains, the ocean floor, underground installations we did not detect during our observation period. Underground. Tethvos moved to the display. Show me. The screen changed to show a map of Earth. Red dots were appearing all over the planet. Hundreds of them, thousands, hidden bases, hidden weapons, hidden cities. The humans had been preparing for something like this, not specifically for the Vethkai. They could not have known about the Vethkai, but they had been preparing for disaster, for extinction, for the end of their world. They had built bunkers deep beneath mountains. They had hidden weapons under oceans. They had constructed secret facilities that not even their own people knew about, because humans were afraid. They had always been afraid. Of asteroids, of disease, of each other. And that fear had made them paranoid. They had prepared for the worst-case scenario. This was the worst-case scenario, and now the survivors were emerging from their holes in the ground. They were angry. They were organized. And they were armed. Admiral, the tactical officer said, his voice now shaking. We have lost 60% of the harvester drones. The humans are using some kind of magnetic acceleration weapon. The projectiles are moving faster than our point defense systems can track. Tethvos stared at the screen. He had conquered 47 species. He had never seen anything like this. The insects were fighting back, not with desperation, but with precision, with planning, with rage. A new transmission came from the planet's surface. This time it was not laughter. It was a single voice, calm and controlled. This is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the United Earth Emergency Council. You killed 2 billion of our people today. We have recorded the energy signature of every ship in your fleet. We have calculated the trajectory of every weapon you fired. We know what you are, and we know where you came from. There was a pause. When the voice continued, it was even colder than before. You thought you were killing us. You were waking us up. You have made an enemy today. Not a species you can crush. Not a world you can harvest. An enemy that will remember. An enemy that will follow you home. An enemy that will make you understand what you have done. Another pause. Then, enjoy your last peaceful night among the stars. We are coming for you. Admiral Tethvos stood in the blue light of his command bridge, surrounded by the most advanced technology in the known galaxy, and for the first time in his long life, he felt something he could not name. It was fear. He did not know it yet, but the universe had just changed forever. The hunters had become the hunted, and humanity, bloody and burning but very much alive, had just introduced itself to the galaxy. The stars would not be quiet for much longer. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, Admiral Chen Wei-Lin walked through tunnels carved from solid rock. Emergency lights painted everything in red. The air was cold and clean, filtered through systems designed to work for centuries without maintenance. Around her, thousands of people moved with purpose. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, doctors, the survivors. Bunker 7 was one of 200 such facilities hidden around Earth. The Continuity Network, they called it. A secret so well kept that even most world leaders did not know its true size. For 60 years, the nations of Earth had quietly prepared for the end of the world. They had expected asteroids, supervolcanoes, nuclear war, pandemic. They had never expected aliens, but preparation was preparation. The bunkers had held. The people inside them had survived. And now, as the smoke rose from 12 dead cities above, those survivors were getting to work. Chen Wei-Lin was 63 years old. She had been a submarine commander, then a military strategist, then the secret head of the Pacific Defense Initiative. When the bombs fell, she had been 3 kilometers underground, reviewing plans for a threat that had finally arrived. She entered the command center. Screens covered every wall, showing data from satellites that had survived the attack, from hidden sensors on the ocean floor, from observation posts on the Moon and Mars. The Vethkai fleet was still in orbit, but they had stopped sending harvester drones. The railgun emplacements hidden in the mountains had destroyed too many of them. "Status report," she said. Colonel Marcus Webb stood at the central console. He was a tall man with dark skin and tired eyes. He had lost his family in the New York blast. His hands were steady anyway. "We have confirmed contact with 147 bunkers," he said. "Estimated surviving population is around 2 billion. The surface is badly contaminated, but the radiation will clear in approximately 18 months with proper management." "What about our assets?" Webb touched the console, and a new display appeared. "Lunar Base Armstrong is intact. Mars Colony Olympus is intact. The shipyards are undamaged." Chen allowed herself a small smile. The shipyards. That was the real secret. For 30 years, humanity had been building warships on the dark side of the moon. Not the small exploration vessels that the public knew about. Real warships. Ships designed for one purpose: to fight. No one had known who they might need to fight. It did not matter. Humanity had learned long ago that the universe was probably not friendly. If other intelligent species existed, they might be peaceful, they might be curious, or they might be exactly like the Vethkai. Better to have weapons and not need them than to need weapons and not have them. "How many ships are ready?" Chen asked. 312 combat-capable vessels," Webb replied. "Another 200 in various stages of construction. We also have the Prometheus platforms, Project Prometheus." Chen had read the files when she first took command. The project had scared her then. It scared her now. But fear was a luxury she could not afford. "Begin full activation of all military assets," she said. "I want those ships crewed and launched within 6 months." Webb nodded. "What about the alien fleet? They still have orbital superiority, for now." Chen turned to face the largest screen, which showed the Vethkai vessels floating above Earth like vultures waiting for a meal. "We need information. We need to know who they are, where they came from, and how to hurt them. I want prisoners." "Prisoners?" Webb raised an eyebrow. "How do you plan to capture aliens in orbit when we cannot reach orbit?" Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. 3 days later, a small Vethkai patrol ship descended into Earth's atmosphere. Its mission was simple: scout the surface and report on survivor activity. It was armed, but not heavily. The crew of 12 did not expect serious resistance. They never saw the missiles coming. The weapons rose from the Pacific Ocean, launched from submarines that had hidden beneath the waves since the attack. The missiles were not designed to destroy the ship. They were designed to damage it, to force it down. The patrol ship crashed in the mountains of central China. Half the crew died on impact. The other half found themselves surrounded by human soldiers who had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. The Vethkai did not surrender easily. They were proud warriors from a proud species. But humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They knew how to capture enemies alive. Within hours, 6 Vethkai prisoners were being transported to Bunker 12, where a team of scientists and linguists waited eagerly. Admiral Tethvos received the news of the lost patrol ship with growing concern. It had been 3 weeks since the initial attack, and nothing was going according to plan. The harvester drones were destroyed. A patrol ship was missing, and the transmissions from the surface continued. The humans were not dying. They were organizing. "We should launch a second bombardment," his tactical officer suggested. "Sterilize the entire surface." Tethvos considered this. It would work. Another round of antimatter weapons would kill everything on the planet, but it would also destroy the resources they had come to collect. The mission would be a failure. "No," he said. "We will wait. They cannot hide underground forever. When they emerge, we will crush them." It was a reasonable decision based on 10,000 years of experience. Every other species had eventually given up. They had emerged from hiding, weak and starving, and accepted their fate. But humans were not every other species. In Bunker 12, Dr. Sarah Martinez stared at the alien prisoner through thick glass. The creature was tall and gray, with 4 eyes that watched her with obvious contempt. It had refused to speak for 3 days. That was about to change. Martinez was a linguist who specialized in pattern recognition. She had spent her career studying how languages worked, how they evolved, how they could be decoded. Now she had the greatest puzzle of her life. The Vethkai had been captured with their equipment, including communication devices. For 3 days, Martinez and her team had been recording every sound the prisoners made, analyzing every symbol on their equipment. building a picture of how their language functioned. "I think I have something," she said to her colleague, Dr. James Wong. "Their language is hierarchical. The grammatical structure reflects their social system. Dominant speakers use different verb forms than subordinate speakers." Wong studied the data. "So, if we want them to talk to us, we need to establish dominance. They do not speak to inferiors. They speak to equals or superiors." Martinez stood up and walked to the glass. The Vethkai prisoner watched her approach. She pressed a button on the console, and her voice transmitted into the cell. She spoke a single sentence in broken Vethkai. The words were simple, but their meaning was clear. "Your ships fall from the sky. Your warriors are in cages. You are weak." The prisoner's 4 eyes widened. It had not expected the human to speak its language. It had not expected the human to use the dominant verb forms. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the prisoner spoke. Not much, just a few words. But it was a beginning. Within 2 weeks, Martinez could hold basic conversations. Within a month, she was fluent. The information that flowed from those conversations would change everything. The Vethkai had conquered 47 species. They had detailed records of every conquest. They had star charts showing the location of every colony, every military base, every strategic resource. They had communication codes that had not been changed in centuries because no one had ever needed to change them. And now humanity had access to all of it. Admiral Chen read the intelligence reports with growing satisfaction. The picture was becoming clear. The Vethkai were powerful, but they were also arrogant. They had never faced a real challenge. Their tactics were ancient and predictable. Their security was laughable. They had spent 10,000 years as the biggest predator in their part of the galaxy. They had forgotten what it felt like to be prey. Chen looked up at the screens showing the alien fleet still orbiting Earth. The ships were waiting for humanity to give up. They would be waiting for a very long time. "Begin Phase 2, she said. "It is time to show them what humans can really do." The first human warship to leave Earth's orbit was called the Vengeance. It was not the most powerful ship in the fleet, but its captain had won a lottery among 10,000 volunteers. Everyone wanted to be first. Captain Yuki Tanaka sat in the command chair and watched the stars grow brighter as her ship accelerated away from the moon. Behind her, 299 more ships were preparing to follow. Ahead of her, somewhere in the darkness, was the enemy. 6 months had passed since the attack. 6 months of preparation, training, and planning. The Vethkai fleet had eventually given up waiting and returned to their empire, leaving only a small observation force behind. They had reported that Earth was dying slowly, that the survivors posed no threat. They were wrong. The human fleet used a drive system that the Vethkai had never seen. It was based on principles that human scientists had discovered but never revealed to the galaxy. Why share your secrets with strangers? The ships moved faster than the Vethkai thought possible. They were also harder to detect. Human engineers had spent decades developing stealth technology to hide from each other. That technology worked even better against aliens, but ships were only part of humanity's plan. The real weapon was something the Vethkai could not have imagined. In Bunker 7, a team of hackers sat in front of glowing screens. They called themselves the Ghost Brigade. Before the attack, they had been criminals, government agents, and corporate spies. Now they worked together for a common purpose. Their leader was a woman known only as Echo. She was 34 years old and had once broken into the defense networks of 3 major nations for fun. Now she had a more interesting target. The Vethkai use a centralized communication network, she explained to Admiral Chen during a briefing. Everything goes through relay stations, military orders, navigation data, personal messages, all of it. Chen studied the diagrams on the screen. "And you can access this network?" Echo smiled. "Admiral, they have no firewalls. No encryption worth mentioning, no intrusion detection systems. They have never needed them. No species has ever tried to hack them before. Why not? Because every species they conquered was already dead before they could try." Echo leaned forward. "But we are not dead, and we have been hacking each other for 200 years. These aliens have better weapons than us, better ships than us, more soldiers than us. But in cyberspace, they are children." The first infiltration happened 3 months before the fleet launched. A single data packet, disguised as routine communication traffic, entered the Vethkai network. It contained a simple program that copied itself and spread to every connected system. By the time the Vengeance left Earth orbit, humanity had access to every Vethkai military database. They knew the location of every ship, every base, every colony. They knew the patrol schedules. They knew the command codes. They knew everything. The Vethkai had no idea. Admiral Tethvos received the report of the approaching human fleet with disbelief. His scouts detected 300 ships moving through space at impossible speeds. The primitives had built a navy. The insects had learned to fly. How is this possible? He demanded. His officers had no answer. They had observed Earth for 3 months and seen nothing that suggested this capability. The humans had hidden their true power completely. It does not matter, Tethvos decided. They are still primitives. Our weapons are superior. Our tactics are proven. We will crush them. He assembled a fleet of 500 ships and moved to intercept the humans. The battle would take place in empty space, far from any planet. It would be quick and decisive. The two fleets met near a small red star that neither species had named. The Vethkai arranged their ships in the traditional formation they had used for 10,000 years. It was a perfect geometric pattern designed to maximize firepower and minimize vulnerability. It had never failed. Captain Tanaka looked at the enemy formation and smiled. The pattern was exactly what the intelligence reports had predicted. The Vethkai were doing exactly what they always did. All ships, execute pattern Delta, she ordered. The human fleet scattered. Instead of forming neat lines, they spread out in seemingly random directions. They moved erratically, changing speed and direction constantly. To the Vethkai, it looked like chaos. Like panic. It was neither. The Vethkai opened fire. Their weapons were powerful and accurate, designed to hit targets moving in predictable patterns. But the humans were not moving in predictable patterns. Shots that should have been perfect misses flew through empty space where ships had been moments before. Then the humans fired back. Human weapons were different. They had been designed by a species that had spent centuries fighting itself. They were not elegant. They were not efficient. They were brutal, creative, and completely unexpected. Missiles that split into dozens of smaller missiles. Railgun rounds that released clouds of shrapnel. Electronic warfare systems that scrambled sensors and confused targeting computers. And something the Vethkai had never encountered. Hacking attacks launched in the middle of combat. Vethkai ships began to malfunction. Navigation systems sent them in wrong directions. Weapons locked onto friendly targets. Communication channels filled with noise. The Ghost Brigade was fighting alongside the fleet, invisible and deadly. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Vethkai had lost 300 ships. The humans had lost 42. Admiral Tethvos retreated with his surviving vessels, his mind struggling to understand what had happened. The primitives had not just fought back. They had won. They had adapted to his tactics in real time, changing their approach constantly. Every time he found a pattern in their movements, they changed the pattern. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They fought like they had nothing to lose. They fought like they were already dead and just wanted to take as many enemies with them as possible. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the message that arrived 3 days after the battle. Every Vethkai communication device in the Empire suddenly displayed the same image. A human face. Admiral Chen Wei-Lin looked out from a billion screens with cold eyes. People of the Vethkai Dominion, she said in perfect Vethkai language. 6 months ago, your fleet attacked our world without warning. You killed 2 billion innocent people. You thought we would be easy prey. She paused, letting the words sink in. You were wrong. Your fleet at the Red Star has been destroyed. Your communication networks belong to us now. Your secrets are no longer secret. We know where you live. We know where your children sleep. We know everything. On 100 worlds, Vethkai citizens watched in stunned silence. Nothing like this had ever happened. No conquered species had ever struck back. No enemy had ever penetrated their networks. No one had ever spoken to them like this. We are not coming to destroy you, Chen continued. We are coming to teach you. You will learn what it means to attack humanity. You will learn what happens when you wake a sleeping giant, and you will remember this lesson for the rest of your existence. The screen flickered, and Chen's expression changed. Just for a moment, she smiled. It was not a kind smile. We are already on our way. You have approximately 4 months to prepare. I suggest you use the time wisely. The transmission ended. Across the Vethkai Empire, Panic began to spread. The hunters had become the hunted. The conquerors were about to be conquered, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, 300 human warships were coming closer. The humans did not just want to win. They wanted the Vethkai to know they were going to lose. They wanted them to feel the fear. They wanted them to understand. This was not just war. This was a lesson, and humanity was an excellent teacher. The planet was called Thessar IV by the Vethkai. The people who lived there called it home. They were the Malori, a gentle species with soft blue skin and large dark eyes. 500 years ago, the Vethkai had conquered them. Now they worked as slaves in factories and mines, building weapons for their masters. When the human ships appeared in orbit, the Malori did not know what to expect. Another conqueror? Another master? They had stopped hoping for freedom centuries ago. Captain David Okonkwo looked down at the planet from the bridge of his ship, the Liberation. His orders were clear. Destroy the Vethkai military garrison and free the slaves. Do not harm civilians. Do not take revenge on the helpless. This is Captain Okonkwo of the United Earth Fleet. He broadcast to the planet below. We are here to remove the Vethkai occupation. If you are a slave, stay indoors and stay safe. If you are Vethkai military, surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will be destroyed. The Vethkai garrison commander laughed at the message. He had 3,000 soldiers and heavy defensive weapons. The humans had only 5 ships. The battle lasted 20 minutes. Human marines dropped from orbit in armored pods, landing directly on top of the main Vethkai base. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, using weapons and tactics the Vethkai had never encountered. Flashbang grenades that blinded 4-eyed aliens. Smoke screens that confused heat-sensing equipment. Close-quarters combat techniques perfected in 1,000 human wars. The Vethkai soldiers were brave, but they were trained to fight in open battles against predictable enemies. They did not know how to fight in darkness against enemies who seemed to come from everywhere at once. When the sun rose over Thessar IV, the Vethkai flag no longer flew above the garrison. Human soldiers stood at the gates, handing out food and water to the freed slaves. The Malori did not understand at first. They waited for the humans to give orders, to assign them new tasks, to become their new masters. Instead, the humans helped them organize their own government. They gave them weapons to defend themselves. And then, after 3 weeks, the human ships left. They asked for nothing in return. Word spread quickly among the conquered species of the Vethkai Empire. The humans were coming. The humans were freeing slaves. The humans were different. On world after world, the same scene repeated. Human ships would arrive. Human marines would destroy the Vethkai military presence. Human doctors would treat the wounded and sick. And then, the humans would leave, asking only that the freed species remember who had helped them. Why? Asked a Malori elder, speaking to Captain Okonkwo before he left. Why do you help us? What do you want? Okonkwo thought about the question for a long moment. He thought about the 2 billion humans who had died. He thought about his own sister, who had been in Sao Paulo when the bombs fell. He thought about the rage that still burned in his heart. Because someone hurt us, he said finally. And we could become like them. We could take our anger and spread it to innocent people. We could conquer and enslave and destroy, like they did, but that is not who we want to be. He looked up at the stars. We want to be better. We want to show the galaxy that strength does not have to mean cruelty, that power does not have to mean oppression. The Vethkai taught their lessons with bombs and chains. We will teach our lessons with freedom and kindness. The elder nodded slowly. And the Vethkai themselves? What will you do to them? Okonkwo's expression hardened. That is a different matter. They have not yet learned their lesson, but they will. Admiral Tethvos watched the reports come in with growing despair. World after world was falling. Not destroyed, but freed. The humans were dismantling his empire piece by piece, and they were doing it in the worst possible way. If they had simply destroyed the conquered worlds, the Vethkai people would have been angry. They would have united against a common enemy. But the humans were not destroying anything. They were giving away what the Vethkai had spent millennia building. They were turning slaves into free people. They were making the Vethkai look weak. We must strike back, his advisors urged. Attack their homeworld again. Destroy them completely. But Tethvos knew it was too late for that. Earth was too well defended now. Human ships patrolled the approaches to their system. Their weapons had proven superior in every engagement. An attack on Earth would be suicide. There was only one option left. Tethvos sent out a call to every ship in the Empire. Every warship, every armed transport, every vessel that could carry weapons. They would gather at the homeworld, Vethkora, and make their final stand. If the humans wanted to end the Vethkai dominion, they would have to fight for it. 4,000 ships answered the call. It was the largest fleet in Vethkai history. It was the last hope of a dying empire. Admiral Chen received the intelligence report with a grim smile. The Vethkai were gathering their forces for a final battle. Good. It would save time. How many ships do we have? She asked. 600 combat ready, Colonel Webb replied. Another 100 that can fight but are not in perfect condition. 600 against 4,000. Chen studied the star chart showing the Vethkai homeworld. Those are not good odds. No, Admiral, they are not. Chen was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the 2 billion dead. She thought about the worlds they had freed. She thought about the future humanity was building. We cannot win a straight fight, she said. So we will not fight a straight fight. Get me the Ghost Brigade. Get me the tactical planning team. And get me every piece of intelligence we have on Vethkai psychology. For 3 days, Chen and her advisors worked without sleep. They studied Vethkai battle tactics going back thousands of years. They analyzed the psychology of a species that had never lost a war. They looked for weaknesses, for blind spots, for anything that could turn the numbers in their favor. And they found something. The Vethkai do not adapt, Doctor, Martinez explained. Their tactics have not changed in 10,000 years because they have never needed to change. They have a response for every situation they have ever encountered, but they have no response for situations they have never encountered. So we give them something new, Chen said. Exactly. Something so unexpected that their entire command structure will freeze while they try to figure out how to respond. And while they are frozen, we hit them with everything we have. Chen nodded slowly. What do you suggest? Martinez smiled. Admiral, have you ever heard of psychological warfare? 2 weeks later, the human fleet began its final journey toward Vethkora. 600 ships against 4,000. The odds were impossible, but humanity had never let impossible odds stop them before. As the fleet traveled through space, a message was broadcast on all Vethkai frequencies. It was not a threat. It was not a warning. It was a list. 2 billion names. Every human who had died in the initial attack. The list scrolled across Vethkai screens for days. Name after name after name. Each one a person. Each one a life ended. And at the end of the list, 4 words. We remember them all. The psychological impact was devastating. The Vethkai had never thought about their victims as individuals. They were just numbers. Just insects. But now those insects had names. Those insects had families and dreams and hopes that had been destroyed. Some Vethkai soldiers began to doubt. They had been told the humans were primitive animals. Animals did not do this. Animals did not remember. Animals did not come back. The cracks in Vethkai morale were small. But in the battle to come, small cracks would become big ones, and humanity was counting on it. The Battle of Vethkora began at dawn. 4,000 Vethkai warships hung in space above their homeworld, arranged in perfect formation. They had been waiting for 3 days, watching the human fleet approach. Admiral Tethvos stood on his command bridge, surrounded by the best officers in the Empire. This was the moment that would decide everything. 600 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They looked small against the massive Vethkai armada. They looked weak. They looked doomed. Tethvos allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans had courage, he admitted, but courage was not enough against superior numbers. This battle would end the human threat forever. All ships, he commanded. Attack formation. Destroy them all. The Vethkai fleet moved forward like a wall of death. 4,000 ships, each one armed with weapons that could destroy cities. The most powerful military force in galactic history. The humans did something unexpected. They did not form a battle line. They did not retreat. They did not try to find cover behind planets or moons. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the Vethkai fleet. Full speed. No hesitation. What are they doing? Tethvos muttered. His tactical officer studied the displays. Admiral, they appear to be on a collision course. Multiple ships are accelerating beyond safe combat speeds. Collision course. The words made no sense. Ships did not ram each other in modern warfare. It was wasteful, primitive, and suicidal. But the humans kept coming. The first human ship to reach the Vethkai lines was the Vengeance, Captain Tanaka's vessel. She had volunteered for the most dangerous position. Her ship was already damaged from previous battles. It would not survive much longer anyway. "All hands," Tanaka announced to her crew. "It has been an honor serving with you." The Vengeance plowed directly into the center of the Vethkai formation at maximum speed. It struck a Vethkai battleship head-on and detonated its remaining weapons at the moment of impact. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire that damaged a dozen other vessels nearby. The Vethkai fleet shuddered. Officers stared at their screens in disbelief. The humans were killing themselves to destroy enemy ships. It was insane. It was terrifying, and it was just the beginning. Not every human ship was on a suicide run. Most were not. But the Vethkai did not know which ships intended to ram and which intended to fight normally. Every human vessel became a potential missile. Every approach became a threat. The Vethkai formation broke apart as ships scrambled to avoid collisions. Officers screamed contradictory orders. The perfect geometric pattern dissolved into chaos. That was when the rest of the human fleet attacked. They came from every direction, exploiting the gaps in the Vethkai formation. Their weapons were not as powerful as Vethkai weapons, but they did not need to be. They were fighting scared enemies in a broken formation, and they had one more advantage. "Ghost Brigade, execute Protocol Omega," Admiral Chen ordered from her flagship, the Remembrance. Deep in the Vethkai communication network, a program that had been sleeping for months suddenly woke up. It began sending commands to Vethkai ships. Random commands. Navigation systems received false data. Weapons locked onto wrong targets. Engines fired at unexpected times. The Vethkai did not know which of their own systems to trust. Ships began firing on each other by accident. Formations that tried to reform found themselves scattered by their own navigation computers. Communication channels filled with screaming and confusion. Admiral Tethvos watched his fleet tear itself apart. The humans were not just defeating them. They were using the Vethkai's own technology against them. Every system, every network, every tool that had made the Empire strong was now a weapon in enemy hands. "Sir," his tactical officer said, voice trembling, "we have lost over 1,000 ships. Our formation is completely broken. We cannot continue." Tethvos looked at the chaos on his screens. He had spent his entire life believing that the Vethkai were invincible, that no species could challenge their dominance, that the universe belonged to them by right. He had been wrong. "Order all ships to protect the homeworld," he said quietly. "Defensive positions only." The battle continued for 11 hours. When it finally ended, the Vethkai had lost over 3,000 ships. The humans had lost 200. It was the most one-sided defeat in Vethkai history, but the humans did not continue their attack. Admiral Chen looked at the shattered remains of the Vethkai fleet and felt no joy. She had lost good people today. Good ships, good friends. The victory had cost more than she had hoped. She could destroy the Vethkai homeworld now. She had the weapons. She had the opportunity. 2 billion human souls cried out for revenge, but revenge was not why she had come. "Open a channel to Admiral Tethvos," she ordered. The Vethkai admiral appeared on her screen. He looked old and broken. His 4 eyes were dull with defeat. "Admiral Tethvos," Chen said, "your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is finished. You have 2 choices. Surrender now and your people will live. Resist, and we will do to your world what you did to ours." Tethvos was silent for a long moment. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why do you offer us survival? We killed 2 billion of your people. We would not have shown you mercy." "I know," Chen replied. "That is exactly why I am showing you mercy. Because we are not like you. We do not destroy species for convenience. We do not slaughter innocent people because they might someday become a threat." She leaned forward, and her voice became hard. "But make no mistake, this mercy has conditions. You will disarm completely. You will release every slave in your territory. You will submit to observation and inspection, and you will remember, for the rest of your existence, that humanity had the power to end you and chose not to." She paused. "You bombed our cities and killed our families. You thought we were weak. You were wrong. We are stronger than you could ever imagine. Strong enough to destroy you. Strong enough to spare you. Strong enough to show you a better way. Tethvos bowed his head. We accept your terms. 100 years later, a monument stood in the rebuilt city of New York. It was a black obelisk, 50 meters tall, covered in names. 2 billion names. Every human who had died in the attack. At its base, an inscription in every known language. They thought we would break. They were wrong. And below that, smaller, to those we lost. We remember. We rebuilt. We became better. Humans and Vethkai walked together past the monument. Once enemies, now partners in a galactic council that promoted peace and cooperation. The Vethkai had learned their lesson. They had become protectors instead of conquerors, using their strength to defend the weak rather than exploit them. It had taken decades. It had taken patience and effort and countless difficult conversations. But humanity had done more than defeat an enemy. They had transformed one. An old Mallory ambassador stood beside the monument, looking up at the names. Beside her was a human child, maybe 8 years old. What happened here? The child asked. The ambassador smiled softly. A very long time ago, some bad people did something terrible to humanity. They thought they could destroy you. They thought you would give up. But we didn't? No, you did not. You fought back. But more importantly, when you won, you did not become like them. You stayed kind. You stayed merciful. You taught the galaxy that there was a better way. The child thought about this. Is that why everyone calls humans the teachers? The ambassador nodded. Yes, because you taught us all the most important lesson. True strength is not about how hard you can hit. It is about what you choose to do when you have the power to hit back. Above them, the stars shone bright and peaceful. The galaxy that had once trembled with fear now flourished with cooperation. Species that had been enemies for millennia worked together, and it had all started with a species that refused to break. A species that chose hope over hatred. A species that looked at the darkness of the universe and decided to be a light. Humanity had introduced itself to the galaxy with blood and fire, but they had earned their place among the stars with something far more powerful: compassion. The end.